Chair, and obviously welcome to everyone after the summer break, as it were. But to take up some themes from the report, Chair, and respond to your opening remarks. Yes, it's been a busy but largely peaceful summer, which is really good news. We may touch on later the fact that emerging concern around hate crimes in relation to specific bonfires, for example. But not only have we dealt with a wide range of public events, but as you've seen in the news both last week and indeed this morning, we've continued our pursuit and disruption of terrorists and paramilitary criminals. And I think that's testament really to the hard work of officers and staff at all levels of our own organisation, some of the partners we work with, but also increasingly the support we're getting from communities across the country in some of these endeavours, and we may touch upon that. I think it's important to remind ourselves, despite some of the concerning backcloth, as you say, Chair, in relation to budget, which I'll come on to in a minute, and the operating environment, that we remain a safe place. The crime figures, whilst I've seen some fluctuation, still remains a point of pride for us that we're one of the safest parts of the UK. And it's also reflected in the outcome rates, i.e. the number of crimes we solve on behalf of the public, which remain impressive whilst we are determined to see where we can make improvements. So my mission and that of the team is to keep it that way. I'm glad you've mentioned the budget gap. Clearly, it's probably the single issue of concern for all of us at the moment. Clearly, we have work to do to try and ameliorate some of the pressures that we're facing. Only yesterday, I wrote to the Permanent Secretary outlining some of our concerns and seeking guidance about where to go ahead as the timeframes reduced and are compressed about decision making, which is really important in year, and then some of the consequences that we may face in terms of irreversible decisions, which clearly may affect service experience and service levels of the public. So it's a dialogue that we welcome your support on, and we remain actively engaged. Clearly, it's not just a budget issue for the organisation and the service, but on the horizon, and who knows, with changes in Prime Minister and then the UK government next week, we're acutely conscious of the impact of cost of living, both on our own staff workforce and the number of people that we employ that may face fuel poverty in the months ahead. But then clearly also there's a broader consequence for people that we protect and police, and we're assessing the likely impact on nature and changes in crime as we speak. So you can anticipate, perhaps without change, that acquisitive crime in various forms, which range from fuel theft, scrap metal theft, shoplifting, may well go up. And similarly, as pressures within the home increase, we can anticipate rises in domestic abuse and domestic violence. So I think there's something we're acutely aware of. Taking the cue on the latter piece, I think it's important to stress, and I think he has another hat on, but I noticed Detective Chief Superintendent McNally's in the room today, who's been doing sterling work with Mark on preparing us for the Violence Against Women and Girl planned launch, which will take place on the 27th of September. It's something we've talked about, both in terms of the internal effects of this issue as well as our service to the public many times. And I think there's been a lot of effort invested to make that launch particularly different, but to emphasise the importance we give that issue because of its effects singularly on people and families, and actually the volume of work it creates for the organisation as well. In terms of good news, I just point members towards the end of the report where we've been shortlisted for a number of awards in relation to our last recruitment campaign. So it'll be interesting, probably by the time we meet again, to sort of update on where that is at. Although there's also a signal to the future that we can't yet give you assurance and confidence about when we will relaunch campaigns, simply because of the pressure on the budget and the less likely need to recruit. We've put in the report today, which we may come on to, some updates on a number of features that have come and gone over the sort of spring and early summer, which I broadly characterise in training and process issues, because I think it's important to give you some clarity and candour in relation to some of the back office systems and processes that affect service delivery. So things like the pursuit of improvements in driver training, the processing of firearms licences, so on and so forth. And then finally, before we sort of submit to questions, a welcome to Leanne Barnett, who's now our newly appointed Director of Communication and Engagement. So after the selection process, she's just joined us into a new, an important role, given the relationship between what we describe to the public and public confidence. So I think I sort of leave that there, Chair, and just take team questions from yourself and from members.
Okay, great, thank you.